Hi, I'm Kathy from the Delafield Quilt Company, and today I'm going to show you how to make some Easter themed pot holders. We've got a bunny, a striped egg, and a diamond egg. All the templates for these are available for free on our website at delafieldquiltco.com, and we use the foundation paper piecing method to create these. The finished block size is about 9 inches and 9 inches. You can either use it for a pot holder, or if you want to make a little Easter quilt, you can use it for that as well. Okay, so we're going to get started with what I believe is the more complicated one, and that's the diamond egg. First thing you're going to need to do is download the template. These templates are available on our website under free patterns and resources, so if you visit us at delafieldquiltco.com, you should see that as an option. And then we're going to need to print the templates out, preferably on foundation paper. One of my favorites to use is Carol Dolk's foundation paper. I like this one because it's light, yet it feeds through the printer really well and it tears off really well. You could also use copier paper, but that's, I think, a little bit harder on your needles and a lot harder to tear off. When you print these, make sure that you print them at 100% output. Okay, besides the template, we're going to need a few other things. We're going to need a ruler, rotary cutter, a few pins, and then lots of scraps of fabric. The fabric that I'm using today is mostly from the collection called Egg Hunt by Natalia Juan Obello from Riley Blake. I'm also going to mix in some solids. For this first egg, I'm going to use a light pink for the background. And then the different egg shapes, or the diamond shapes, are going to just be the yellow, pink, the mint green, and then yellow again. Okay, we do want to cut our templates out. I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. You probably want to have a blade that's specific for foundation paper piecing because this paper tends to dull your blade a little bit. So I just keep mine specifically for this purpose. And then I switch it out when I'm cutting fabric. Okay, so I'm just cutting these out. You don't need to be precise at this point. Just make sure that you cut away from the dotted line because we're going to cut that down further once the fabric's sewn. Okay, I've got my templates cut out. You'll see that it does tell you which one's number 1, and this is just so you know what order to put them in. You could mix up this order a little bit to get a different look to your egg, but I want that diamond shape. If I mixed up template 2 and template 3, it gives you more of a zigzag. So if you're going for that look, by all means, please do so. But for this purpose, I'm going to just put them in order 1, 2, 3, then we have a 4th and a 5th one. I'm going to start with the top, template 1. So if you're new to foundation paper piecing, we do have a video tutorial on that on our website as well, or our YouTube channel, that you're welcome to watch as well. So I'm going to just go a little bit quicker, but if you need a little extra, feel free to watch that tutorial. So I think the main thing is to make sure that you have a really small stitch setting on your machine. That's going to make pulling the paper off a lot easier. And then we're just going to start in the order that the template shows us. So D1 will be the first one fabric we lay down, D2, and then D3. So we're going to start with D1. I'm going to turn this over. And D1, I know, I'm going to turn it back over just so I can explain this, but D1 and D3 are going to be my outside of the egg. So that's going to be the solid fabrics. So I'm going to find a piece of my scraps that's going to be big enough to cover all of the D1 section. You want to make sure it goes beyond all of the lines. And sometimes it helps if you lay it over, because we're going to be working from the back side. If you hold it up to the light, then usually you can see the lines on the outside. You can just do a check just to make sure that your fabric piece is going to be big enough. And then I'm going to lay down D2. And this is going to be the first color, so it's going to be the yellow, these little yellow bunnies. And you're going to want to lay that face down, or right side down, on top of the backing fabric. or on top of this. You're going to want to lay that right sides down on top of the solid fabric. And you need to make sure that when I'm going to grab a bigger piece, you need to make sure that when you flip it over, it's going to be big enough that's going to cover this entire D2 section, because we're going to sew it right here, then we'll flip it, and then we'll sew on D3. Just to make sure that it's going to fit, I'm just going to pin it down on this line. And I'm just going to do a quick test just to make sure that's going to be okay. So I'm a little nervous about this. It's probably hard to see without the light, but it barely comes over here. It should be a 1/4 inch beyond this line here. It looks like it's going to be just barely that, so I'm going to go ahead and sew it. But you want to just make sure that your pieces are going to fully cover it. All right, so I'm going to then flip this back over. I'm going to go back to my machine, and I'm going to sew right on this dark black line here. And again, I want to make sure that I'm using a small stitch, so I'll be right back. Okay, again, make sure your stitch length is short. The shorter the better. And then we're stitching right on the solid line. All right, I've got this sewn on. I'm just going to peel back the paper a little bit, and then we're going to trim a 1/4 inch for the seam allowance. Fold it back. I'm going to press this open. You want to just do a double check to make sure that your fabric covers all of the D2 and then enough to overlap at least a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to press it quick, and then I'm going to sew in D3. I think when pressing your foundation paper pieces, I tend not to use steam just because I think it gets the paper a little wet and just makes it harder to work with. Okay, once you've got that pressed, then we're going to go ahead and add D3. And that's going to be another solid. So if your pattern has these angled pieces like this one has a lot of them, if you place the piece almost perpendicular to your template, it gives you the ability to, when you fold it over, it'll naturally kind of turn to cover your whole template. Always, if you try to line it up with that angle, it doesn't always fold over the same way you might think it would. Okay, I've got this tested. I'm going to go ahead and sew it, and I'll be back. All right, just like before, fold the paper back. I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch. Give it a finger press. And then I'm going to iron it. Okay, now that this first template's done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim right on the dotted lines. Use your straight edge. And if you line your straight edge up, you can also check it should be a 1/4 inch from the solid line. If your templates fall off like mine just did, just give it a little pin. It'll be fine. You're going to rip it off then anyways. Alright, so our first part of the egg, the top of the egg, is done. And now we're going to start template number 2. And we want to make sure, because we're doing the diamonds, that our color is going to match this top row. So for the top C's here, C3, C1, and C7, I'm going to do that same yellow fabric. Starts with C1, so I'm going to pick a piece that I think will fit. That one looks good. And then the next one we're going to sew is going to be a different color. And that's going to be my next row, or the top of the diamonds for the next row. And I'm going to do a pink for that one. So we're going to flip this over, use the light to kind of get your fabric in the right place. For this one, it didn't make so much of a difference for our last template because they were solids, but you do want to make sure it's right side up for your first piece. And then your next piece is going to be laid down right side down. I'm actually going to choose a different piece because I want my little bunny to be showing the right way. Okay, once you have it lined up, go ahead and sew it, and then we'll move on to the next one. Like before, we'll fold down the paper and then trim it. So hopefully this method is starting to make sense. I'm going to keep it moving along. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the rest of this template, and then I'll show you what we need to do for the next one. Okay, so I've got the first two sections all sewn on the paper and trimmed up, and now I'm going to start working on the next one. I just want to point out here, just to make sure that you match up your fabric so you get that diamond look. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew this and the remaining templates, and then I'll be back to show you how to put it together. Okay, now that I've got all my templates sewn, I'm just going to sew them together. And to do that, I'm just going to line up the edges, and then I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the line. Cut that out. Okay, I've got my first egg all sewn together and trimmed up. And for the second egg, you're going to use the same exact template that you did for the diamond one, except you're going to do a lot less sewing. Essentially, I'm just going to put one big piece of fabric for the stripe, and I'm only going to sew on these two lines. So between the egg and the solid background. And I'm going to just repeat that for the other sections of this template as well. So again, I'm only sewing on the outer lines and a big strip of fabric here. This egg is going to come together a lot faster than the other one. So I'm going to go sew that, and then we'll go on to the bunny. Okay, so I got all of the pieces of the second egg done. And I just wanted to show same pattern as that first egg, but just a lot less sewing, just on those exterior egg lines. Alright, I'm going to set these pieces aside and just show you the bunny template. So the bunny template, same process. This one only has two. It's got the ears and the little face. And you're just going to do the same method that you did with the egg, just to sew on the lines, follow the orders of the numbers, and then sew the two pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the bunny. Okay, if you're looking to make the actual pot holder, I'm going to talk about that next. Pretty simple process. A few things that you need. We'll just set aside our little egg block. You're going to need 2 pieces of batting, about 10 inches by 10 inches. I like to use 2 by pot holders. You could do less, but I just like to be a little bit thicker for more protection. And then you need a piece of ironing board fabric or heat reflecting fabric. We're just going to layer this like we would a quilt. Ironing board fabric side down. Then my 2 layers of batting. And then your egg block. So you could quilt this whatever way you'd like. I'm going to just do a diagonal line and then do it the opposite way. I am going to use a bigger stitch for this because I just don't want to puncture more holes than I need to in this ironing board fabric, just to keep it a little more protecting. Alright, to start, I'm just going to draw some quilting lines. Just so I can get a nice straight line to start with. I'm going to go down both sides. Just diagonally across using my marking pen. I'm just going to go ahead and draw all the lines because I want them to be 1 inch apart. Once you have your lines drawn, you can go ahead and start the quilting process. Okay, now that I've got the first egg all quilted, I'm just going to go ahead and trim the sides and square it up. Alright, now that I've got the first egg all quilted and trimmed up, I'm going to go ahead and bind it. You can use whatever binding technique you'd like that you normally use for quilts, just in a smaller format. I'm going to use the faux piping technique. If you are unfamiliar with what that is, visit our channel because we do have a video on how to do that. Okay, now I've got the binding on my pot holder, and as you can see, this full piping binding method really adds just a little extra bit of detail to the pot holder. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you liked us, please consider subscribing to our channel and visit us at www.delafieldquiltco.com.